Buddhism and karma, and I fully understood what karma was, and that made more sense to me than somebody being punished. And that word punishment was a hard thing for me to grasp, because in my mind, punishment means there's something higher that's doing that to you instead of you doing it to yourself, like at how karma works. That made more sense, because he wasn't a great guy. Let's be honest. Like he had some flaws, and so I was like, okay, he wasn't the greatest guy, so that makes more sense than some higher being punishing him, because that seemed cruel to me at the time, at my age. And I've grown from that since then, but it was a lesson, a good lesson to learn. So thank you for sharing that.
Okay, so we're all set, right? Everyone has an opportunity to share.
I believe it was Kim on. I didn't see her.
No, she's not joining us tonight, so she's not ready for group work. So.
Okay, then yes, everyone has.
Okay, as of this point, I'm going to address you all by your first letter. Okay, by your first letter, not your entire name, because at this point, Buddhism is under attack. Okay, so we are just going to address you by your first letter, not your name. Someone gone to great lengths at trying to figure out where our Rinpoche is, and sending very interesting emails. So, which shouldn't be a surprise for any of you. Now, you all know recently I went to see Bhikkhu Bodhi, right? And as I was there, one of the lay people says, when he came, we didn't want to tell a lot of people until last minute. We didn't want to plan it out because they were anticipating interference that people may have with His Holiness. Mind you all, His Holiness has a particular tone in regards to social welfare. So, of course, he may potentially have people who don't like him or could disrupt his event, or who knows. Myself, our Rinpoche are leaders. Myself and Vasu are leaders in Buddhism. 2-star generals in Buddhism. So there is someone who is actively stalking us down to the very fine details that is very quite, it fits elements of stalking. So my legal team is going to figure out who it is. They hide behind an email and they do these weird things. So that's why I did not announce Rinpoche's name, right? But I can see how they stalk. So it's very interesting. You all know my life is an experiment, and so I consider myself a social scientist, experimental psychology, and it's very interesting to see a lot of things unfold. Same thing in California. Someone stalked me to the point where they knew exactly which monastery I was staying at, and it got to one of my close students' ears, and I was like, "That's interesting. Thank you for letting me know." That was considered a security breach. So again, with the way how our world is, you all know we're being recorded, right? Just now. So, all right. With the way that our world is, the rate of hate and the prevalence of hate and the intensity of hate, sure, they're going to attack representatives of peace, which is us. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the uniform and the religion that I have chosen. So I find it fun, actually, as a leader. I find it fun as a general, dealing with hate and dealing with it, right? Because I just use that as an excuse to raise more money and proliferate even more. I wanted to cut this. I wanted to keep certain things short today because I wanted everyone to say thank you to an anonymous donor who donated towards Rinpoche's arrival. $300. So there's two types of heart attacks. There's one that can kill you, and then there's one that makes me very happy. So I told our donor, who asked to remain anonymous, who is a CEO, that it could have greatly benefited him and his organization but he asked to remain anonymous. And I said, okay, well, I'll just say anonymous donor. And I wanted to take this and rub it in the stalker's face that Buddhism is not going to stand down, whether we're being targeted or not, and representatives of this order being targeted or not. And we're going to use that as a wonderful reason to raise more money than ever before, to grow even bigger and stronger and train more monks. That's why we have the novice monk program. You see, people who on the other side who aims for hate for whatever reason, I mean, just for whatever reason, just name 1,000 reasons. There are people who after the Pope, cardinals, archbishops, Buddhist monks, right? I mean, just look at the Dalai Lama. Remember when he kissed that kid because it was cultural appropriate to kiss the kid, and they call the Dalai Lama a pedophile, and they try to twist the video up and down, left to right, to do it. So if they did that to the Dalai Lama, 5-star general. We only 2 stars. So they're going to try it, right? And they will go at great lengths. And of course, I stand for LGBTQIA+. So who knows if somebody out there hates LGBT? I stand for civil rights. I stand for environmental protection. So, anyways, I just wanted to take this opportunity to just rub it in that person's face. It's right now identified as one individual, and they've been at it since the beginning of the year. They mask behind an actual Dharma name. They made up a Dharma. They wouldn't have the courage to come out to identify who they are. They just hide behind things. That's what we get nowadays, is they hide behind usernames and stuff like that. So try to harass. But I wake up with a different kind of energy. If you all must know what kind of monk I am, you all can consider me as the Asian Buddhist version of Reverend Al Sharpton. Of course, Reverend Al Sharpton has stand in front of Congress, U.S. representatives, Senate hearings, and he gives it to them very calmly. It's them that reacts in a unwise way to him, but he's just like, I don't understand why you get mad. And I'm like, oh, that is an active sitting senator. And I'm like, oh no, he didn't. So there was one sentence that he gave that gives us a different energy. He says, when I wake up and they say something about me, it gives me even more energy to keep on doing what I'm doing. And I'm like, oh. So there's 2 ways a person can do that. They can fold inwards and get depressed and sad about it and feel insignificant to make a change. Or you become Jidao, or you become Reverend Al Sharpton and Martin Luther King and Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh and Dalai Lama, Pope. All of us sat together. We have a very interesting conversation how we survived the shark attack on land as leaders. So, yeah. So they're right now just brewing right now. I don't know what they're brewing, but they're brewing. So anyways, very, very, very happy that we have people out there that track what's going on in Buddhism. Therefore, they notice the details that I'm doing, like the Rinpoche thing. The Rinpoche, the reason why I withheld Rinpoche's name was exactly for this, because I waited for this. I wanted this to happen. I wanted the praise and blame to come, and I wanted to see how they use their tactics. I read the email that was forwarded to me by number 1 Vasu, and number 2 another organization. Thank you. They're actually my intelligence unit. I have a people don't know what it's like to be a 2-star general in Buddhism. You have a lot of departments, just like any other departments. There's a lot of money that comes in, and it is being where it needs to go. And my own intelligence unit showed me the email, and I'm like, wow, this person is described as a pebble that has fallen to the ground. Like, you can't even see it. Because when you read the email, you realize that they have no knowledge in a lot of fields, but they wanted to sound like an expert, right? So it's actually quite embarrassing. It's embarrassing to even show the email. It's embarrassing to even get worked up over it. And that's why no one's worked up over it. So, but it is an attempt and an attack. It is a bow and arrow. It is an attempt of a very weak bow flying towards our steel wall. And so that's why I wanted to not have any more interference. At the time of this talk, there's a student to my left that's waiting to be disciplined. Okay, so there's a novice to my left that's waiting to be disciplined. So this is the face of, I'm getting ready to crack the whip. Okay, don't call DCF because it's not a real whip. It's the psychological whip, not the real whip. So anyways, so B and K, I need to talk with you all. You guys are my secretary in regards to this trip. And there's some details I wanted to talk with you all. Not tonight, probably next, but you all should prepare for it and prepare for some messages. Furthermore, just this month and next month, the month of February and March, I like everyone's report to be short, concise. I'm experimenting with all of you, and I want you all to embrace this. Why short? Like if someone was to ask me how I'm doing, I'm like, I'm great. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Short, concise, because the conversation and most of the venting should be in your journal. Why are we doing this? And why are we doing this now? And I want everyone to be aware of the word I. And I started to see how people are getting themselves in all sorts of trouble with the I. I just want everyone to notice how many times we use I. And in Buddhism, the total opposite, which is the non-self. Of course, now you all got that video I sent you all, right? Like today, like hours ago, maybe 3 hours ago. Okay. Right. And that, first of all, talks about the infinite consciousness, the whole, all that shebang last week that I just didn't want to go over. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to find a video that's going to explain it for me. Because I don't want to take a Tylenol right now after trying to explain. Some things you got to take a Tylenol and then explain it. So I let stuff, because it clearly, the video I sent you all connected about matter. It talks about astrophysicist. Zebra. Astro zebras. And then it tied in with the sense consciousness. It just ties everything together in a nice little neat package where you can go back and forth, and try to get the point all in 25 minutes. Okay. But I want you to apply that to yourselves and your experiences. So I think it'd be very helpful. I just wanted to experiment it with everyone. In many ways, I'm trying to replicate how I went through a lot of things back in the day. And most of it was in silence, a conversation with myself, seeing things unfolding. Too much eyes can get us into trouble, compound our suffering, magnify our suffering. So as an experiment, I just wanted to let you all know this month and next month, like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, I'm good. I'm doing good. Give a couple examples and try to keep it within 5 sentences. It's a good challenge for all of you, I believe. Of course, anyone can meet with me before and after if you really need to vent, right? Thank you, B, for B1, and then there's B2. The lady in the pink shirt is B2. Okay? The other thing is this whole praise and blame thing, and then the fact that I have to call my students by their first letter, you're like, oh my God, we feel like a number. We can't believe he can't even address us by our first name, which is good because we want to non-identify. In Buddhism, you want to let go of your identity, actually. You see? Right. So sometimes the people who are targeting Vasu or me, and I'm training Vasu not to take it, in a certain way. And I'm like, Vasu, they can call me all sorts of names they want. Who do I think I am, Vasu? I don't think I'm a 2-star general. I don't think I'm even a Buddhist monk. I'm just an ever-flowing, changing group of aggregates. And that's how all of you should see this. I am a constant, ever-flowing, changing group of aggregates. Form, feeling, sensations, name, labeling, you know? If you saw a cup, or so you think it's a cup, but you don't touch it, it's really hard to be confident that that is a cup. What if it's a vase? Because you can't touch it, you can't really label it from far away. There's certain optical illusions you right? Play with me here, right? Understand where I'm coming from? So in many ways, you guys are being deconstructed of yourself, which is very hard to hear, by the way, because you're like, oh, what do you mean? But this is me. This I am who I am. I am this gal named Victoria, last name Secret. And so, first name Abercrombie, last name Fitch. So I'm teaching you all non-self. All right. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just cycling through some of the practices, and I just wanted to make it a good challenge. Tonight, a lot of pending things on my mind, so I may be all over the place tonight. As you imagine, as I'm talking to you, on my left shelf of my brain is trying to discipline this novice and trying to remain calm. Let's proceed with CBT. Trying to remain calm. Let's proceed with CBT. Mr. Lee, Mr. L, do you have any questions on CBT? Senator L.
Hello. Not really. Should I speak with an accent to further hide my...
No, you're good. You're good. Sometimes I just want to be extra. I'm just extra. I'm sorry.
This is my accent. Anyways, no, I'm reading chapter 17, Overcoming Obstacles in Progress, and talks about guilt, pride, and shame, and that kind of stuff. And I feel, yeah, I'm reading through it, but I feel like it's not meaty enough for me. I feel like, let's see. Like, they do have good tips, but I feel like this book at least, doesn't go in depth enough for me to really, wrestle with my, deep sense of shame and that kind of stuff, which I think maybe it's difficult to have generalized tips, maybe because it's so personal and subjective.
Okay, all right. So without me knowing specifics about you, this is a general book, and it's like I'm giving you Cipro or amoxicillin, a broad spectrum antibiotic, until you tell me, all right, well, it's not working, and right now I have specifically this thing right here. So that's why B2 was at my office today and going into details that I needed to gather so I can be more target specific, right? And there's also you have this version, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you, Senator L and Senator K, are very analytical intelligence officers. So you guys can hold on. Let me whip out the big one. You guys are in trouble now.
Senator L.
Where did it go?
It's spelled EL, by the way. I think that sounds more fancy to me.
Good luck, guys.
It's like the. You go by Senator the. I think that's kind of funny. Or L. They both work.
No.
This tip. Swallow your pride and be ready to seek advice and help. Recognizing something. But anyways, yeah. I'm ready.
On the floor. Okay, so anyway, so there are there are clinical versions of CBT, okay? And then, for some reason, Congressman L and Senator K, you guys are probably going to be actual therapists by the time you're done. Because I just don't know what's going on in your mind. You won't tell me. But if you must, go ahead. Be my guest. Be my guest. Hell, teach me new things. Right? Well, anyways, but these are like for the pros. It gets in there. And then there's also actual real clinical examples from stories. There are actual stories in here where you can play detective, where you're like, so this is the presenting problem, and this is how her mind is tripping, and this is the actual clinical application, the deeper clinical application for whatever, creating dissonance principles method. Example 1, create dissonance. Okay, so perceptual shifting, transposing. All right, now we're getting like PhD level stuff in here. Historical resynthesis. All right, you want to get yourself in trouble? You can get yourself in trouble all day. Adjuncts, and I don't know what else is in here. Yeah, it gets really deep. Countering techniques, finding beliefs. You guys already know that. So, anyway, so you guys can dive into clinicians' handbooks on CBT if you don't want to address it with me directly. Because
yeah, for me, like what's been really working lately is I don't know how familiar you are, and I'm definitely not familiar enough to talk about it like an expert by any means, but like parts work and parts therapy, and identifying the different kind of versions that reside within you that all represent some kind of unmet need or desires, things like that, and seeing kind of like how the different parts kind of interact with each other has been providing clarity into the way I respond and like sometimes things are I'm getting like conflicting emotions, and it's usually because this stimulus happens to arise two different things, and I can simultaneously want something and hate it at the same time because they're arising they're addressing hitting the nail on two different parts of myself and stuff like that. Narratives like that has helped me kind of study myself a little bit more with personalized clarity, because I think sometimes CBT can feel a little too clinical for me, and I'm a very imaginative, creative person, and that kind of approach where I personalize things helps me kind of understand the story behind what's going on up there or in my heart and stuff. So parts therapy and understanding, shining the light upon all these different kind of needs basically has been a good solid approach to the dynamics that are happening in my head.
Okay, cool. I'll look that up, parts therapy, and then I get to learn something new. So that's why. So that's awesome. Actually, I get to learn something new. All right, very good, very good.
That's what I've been doing with my therapist, so it's been working for me at least.
Okay, good. Miss.
That's it.
Jorge, you had a hand up. Yes, go ahead.
Pardon me. So, I think it's great how you guys are doing that with the CBT, but quite frankly, if you just go to the chapter, first you have to memorize the thinking errors. Because I hear a lot of you guys talking and you're saying the things that the thinking errors are addressing. But wait a minute. You need to go back to that section because it tells you exactly how to address everything that you're talking about. Like emotional reasoning, Leo, what you just said, is literally one of the thinking errors. The other part where you say you have to be imaginative, that would go under, it could go under catastrophizing, but definitely fortune telling. Those are thinking errors. So when those things arise, you have to be aware that that's what you're doing. And as far as putting yourself about clinically or not, whatever, I'm not saying what you said. What I'm trying to get at is just to the point, to the like you said, the meat of the stuff. Well, the meat of the stuff is in those thinking errors, man. You got to go back. Everybody's got to go back. Anybody who's having issues, including myself, I'll put myself in the boat. You go back to the thinking errors and you'll start catching them. That's the first thing. You have to memorize the thinking errors and know when you're doing them. And then all these issues that you're having, personalization, catastrophizing, black and white thinking, what do you call it? Any of the thinking errors. I don't know them all by heart because as soon as I feel awkward.
All right.
So I just want to say about that.
Okay. All right. So sometimes CBT is not a one size fit all, and sometimes I forget how the mind could be complicated. I mean, I used to be a really, I went past through all of this, so it's actually refreshing for me that out of all of us, we have two critical, analytical, psychological minds that is here presenting. So it actually gets me back on the hamster wheel, because when in my younger days I was that, impossibly complicated for me, myself creating my own maze in my head and trying to get out of my own maze. So again, psychologytoday.com, and you can look at all the different types of therapies that is there, and then you just cycle through them, and then that's how you become good, and you try to apply it. For some of us, we have to use different techniques and stuff like that. So I think everybody's doing fine, and if somebody's not doing fine, they'll reach out to me on a more tailored approach quickly. I'll know something when my phone rings, and that's why Senator L, when you pocket dialed me that one day, and I was like, he's not picking up. Here, Cold Blue, activate Cold Blue. Send me some ambulance over there right now. And then L was like, "Oh, I just pocket dial you," and I was like, "All right." So, Chris, go ahead with your questions.
Hey. Oh.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
CBT.
My question is more so just interesting that with me going through what I've kind of been dealing with the last few days. I was reading, like I said, part 4 of CBT, and it's just interesting to me that lately the last few remnants of CBT is like hitting home for me. Like I'm going through something and bam, I'm reading about it in CBT. So it's like, huh. But it kind of goes to what Jorge was talking about catastrophizing. But on page 245, and I guess you could say second paragraph. I'm just going to read these 2 paragraphs just to reference it. And it says setbacks are a normal part of development. Human beings have emotional and psychological problems just as readily as physical problems. You don't have to be ashamed of your psychological problems any more than you should be ashamed of an allergy or a heart condition. Another common reason for people ignoring the reappearance of psychological problems is catastrophizing, or assuming the worst, which leads you back to chapter 2. With the thinking errors, many people jump to the conclusion that a setback equals a return to square one, but this certainly doesn't have to be the case. You can take the view that a problem you conquered once is at a fundamental disadvantage when it tries to take hold again. This is because you know your enemy. Use what you already know about recognizing and arresting your old thinking and behavior to help you pluck that weed before it gets too far above the ground. And it just sits at home with me because, like I said, the last few days, what I've been dealing with, and one of the ladies that I guess you could say took me under her wing at the Y, and I was asking her opinion on something, and she was like, "But you already identified it, Kristen. Like the first thing that you need to be thankful for is that you identified that that's how you're feeling, and that you need to address that. You need to make that change in your mindset because it's not as bad or as worse as you think it is." So hearing that from her, hearing John Tanat telling me to be more mindful yesterday, and then, doing my own self-healing, self-thinking, and realizing, okay, here I go again. It's popping up in my head. I need to, catch it before it gets worse. And then reading this, I'm just like, well, yeah, I see it. I identify it. So I just wanted to read that part because it just, like I said, hit home for me the last few days. And it's just interesting that, like, lately, I might go through something, write it down, or do an ABC worksheet, and then bam, not anticipating any of this in what I'm about to read on the next couple of pages, and it hits again. So that was it.
Mm.
And I definitely want to make sure I go back to chapter 2 and make sure I hone in on remembering the thinking errors for sure. I think that'll also help me down the line as well. Like I said, this book, I kind of agree with Leah a little bit, but I'm not ready for that advanced PhD, CBT. This is totally fine with me for like the next year and a half. But yeah, just it helps. It really does. Me recognizing the thinking errors within my mind and my heart and stuff. So, yeah, that was all.
Okay, thank you. This directly goes into researching the evolution of the mind. Obviously, the mind of the Generation Z's. Senator L is Generation Z, and so therefore, this provokes, for me, curiosity into the advancements and the evolution of one's mind. And I wish Elle will reach out to me after today to go into specifics so that I understand, because what we know is that Generation Z's suffer a lot with the emerging poverty, what happened to them with COVID, how society looks at them, view them, judge them. Just they're being attacked from every direction and angle. So it's a very sharp decline in Generation Z's. And so for me to go into, wanting to dive even deeper, it will give me a clear understanding of what's going on. Now, B2 was at the office today, and there was an 18-year-old student that walked in, and just wanted to say a few things to B2. Every human that is with me, come across me, or enters my office, there's a story behind them. And what you did not know, B2, is that student has a very unique way of coping. And right now, that student is actually on track, to my surprise, because the student was went through a lot of violence growing up in Vietnam. A lot of violence growing up in Vietnam, and cope with it in such a way his memory actually erases some of it. His memory actually erases anything that is bad that happens in a day to ensure his own peace. It's pretty cool. It's actually really cool. The hippocampus, so he describes. And then I'm like, so what do you do to cope? Drugs? No. Alcohol? No. Girlfriend? No. Sex? No. Just hang out with friends? Yes. You play sports? I'm getting there. I was like, oh, okay. So I'm tracking Gen Alphas. So he is part of my longitudinal research of tracking Gen Alphas to see how they respond, how they react, you know what I mean? And whether or not CBT will be appropriate down the road for interventions, and who will be resistant to CBT interventions. That's the other thing, So the mind is a very interesting to study. Okay, Miss K, go ahead.
I just had a quick question because you were. Stating that, like, with, I guess, Senator L being, I guess, Gen Z, with the Gen Z, those that come after, with them having to deal with so many different, I guess, experiences or them being attacked. As an example, with, I guess, those of my age, which, or I guess we could consider millennials, do you feel that it would be, is it more so how millennials maybe raised them and or perceived them because of how we came up? At least I don't speak for myself, but I came up on the tail end of where there's no technology. I can live without technology for a little bit and not go, and I can use it as well. So it's like a give and take. Whereas I'm not necessarily sure if anyone after millennials can handle that aspect. And kind of too, like, we just kind of dealt with like just, okay, if you're dealing with something, just get over it or go through the process of how they, our parents raised us or that prior generation. The bullying, the not delving too deeply into whatever it is you're going through. I guess my thing is you stating that they're being attacked. Is that because they never had the skills to cope? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because depending on each generation, the skills to cope are different. If that makes sense.
So, yeah, Gen Millennials, I the one thing about me is that I take videos way back before I was a monk. And there's this one video where I'm like, I don't understand why people don't answer the phone nowadays. And you see the phone thing. You see when I sent my messages to y'all, all of y'all, and I actually timed, let's see who's going to respond to me the quickest. And there's a reason behind that experiment. Listen, you guys are guinea pigs. You guys should know. I mean, I told the world a long time ago that I was experimental psychologist type mindset, type MO, so that everyone knows, oh boy, what is he going to do? And so the point of it is, I just wanted to see how you prioritize your life and how you attach importance to the phone and your circle of friends, family, spammers, scammers, right? Do anyone here even have a separate ringtone when I text or call? Because you can do that. You can get creative and do that. So Gen Millennial, my generation, we were okay for a good minute. We barely got by. Research says that millennials were like barely got by with mental health, barely on a whim. Generation Z's and Alpha, the existence, I think after 2006 or 2006 and beyond, the existence of cell phones, this shrinks their brains. The algorithm, the TikTok, the Instagram, it's not good. Then the millennial parents don't know how to be parents, so they got that long end of the stick. And then the drugs and the alcohol on top of that. So like, what chance do they have to give their brain to like recover and make sense of it all? And then they're taking their things very personally. So, again, after today's talk, y'all can look up Gen Zs and Gen Alphas and see the multitude of avenues that pulls them different directions. And, they're most likely going to become homeless. They're most like, the trauma that they've gone through. So, it gives people like me, clinicians, like trying to like, what? They got languages we don't even understand, like they start calling each other simps, SIMPs, like boys that can't get laid. They call them simps as a form of bullying, psychological bullying. You're not man enough, or what? We're like, what is that word again? Simps. There's articles written about it. And by the way, if you all must so, psychologytoday.com again gives short synopsis of what's going on in the psychological world. So if you must, like I did, I used to pick 5 articles each week. I still have articles in my old emails that I can like bring. That was what interested me back in the day. Matter of fact, if I print them, It would give you insight that exactly that time in that year, 10, 15 years ago, that's what interested me in knowing about the mind. So if you're bored with life, have nothing to do, go on psychologytoday.com, choose 5 articles each week, and you'll be a psychologist within 5 years, maybe even less. Or your money back, I guarantee it. You'll be in the know about your human, you'll be in the know about loneliness, you'll be in the know about coping mechanisms, resiliency. Okay. So it's just too much to cover tonight on Gen Zs. Again, you do outside research and you realize, oh my God, poor thing. Now it cost them, like, even if they used all of their earnings and not even pay for food, it would take them, like, I think 15 years to own a house if they didn't even pay for food. So the cost of living and, social media, leadership, toxic world, toxic parenting, is just being, that's a lot of violence towards the minds of Gen Zs and alphas. In already.
Psychology, what?
Is that what Leo is? Is he in that range?
I think so. I said that is a lot of violence attacking the mind in an already existing violence of the mind. I mean, the mind is the mind. Our minds is already violent to us.
Thank you for letting me know. All right.
Nonetheless, other external influences that is attacking them. Bows and arrows. Left wing, right wing politics. A lot of them get into politics at novice Devon at 15 years old. They're like, oh, I'm not friends with you no more because you done had talk shit about Kamala Harris. I get that. And I'm like, you are 15. You're supposed to be kicking a soccer ball. You're 15. 15. You're sitting here debating speech and debate over Kamala Harris about what she did or did not do. And I'm like, that's crazy. That's a lot of things are absolutely. I'm like, what? You're into this, But then at the same time, we're also having middle schoolers that can kill certain cancer cells in vitro. Okay, they're like using their wits and wisdoms and intelligence to, like, cure cancer and kill cancer cells in vitro. And we have Dr. Shoyano, who is MD, PhD at age 21. MD at 16 and then PhD at 21. So again, to study the mind is that's how you need to direct your mind to what matters to you. And what we're doing here is trying to eliminate that long effects of trauma, me, my, and I. That's my goal for you guys, so that you guys can use that intelligence towards something bigger and greater than ourselves and our story that we cling on to dearly for so long and so deep. But individuals take time to really process through some of these things. But yeah, I hope that answers that.
Can you repeat the name of? You said psychology. What?
Today, psychologytoday.com.
Psychologytoday.com.
Yes. Did any of you and Senator L look at the Hillside Hermitage YouTube that I sent y'all? Was that stimulating enough for y'all?
I did.
Oh, I know Jorge.
Yeah.
Jorge's at it. Jorge's got 2 PhDs in Dhamma.
I started listening to it.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Leo.
Oh, I was gonna say I went to his YouTube thing, and I, played the most popular video, which is like an hour-long video about him talking about the purpose and the real technique behind meditation, and I found that to be insightful. It got me like an even more, I think, good idea of like the purpose and intent behind the meditation. It's not something that you do, but something that is already inherent about you, and tuning into that throughout the day, rather than is to almost like the kind kind of like my summary version of what he was saying to me is like, it's like almost like we have like this, like, you know how monkeys hold on to like a branch with their tail as they use all four limbs for something else? Like, meditation is like developing this spiritual tail that latches on to the way the Tao, essentially. It latches on to your breath, which is not you. The breath is happening. And like the same way the earth is spinning and the universe is universing, like the breath is happening. That is the part of you that is so much bigger than who you think you are, which oftentimes, I think I am hell. But there's so much more that I just, my brain thinks I know. And what meditation is like developing this tail that latches onto this branch that is interconnected with the rest of the universe. And as long as my tail is latched onto this branch, I can use all of my limbs, which is my brain, to interact with the jungle. But oftentimes we let go of this spiritual tail and we fall, and we are just manically falling, and then we're, by fence. And so the purpose of meditation is to develop this skill and make sure that we are mindfully grabbing onto this part of the universe that we are actually connected to as we interact with the world. As long as we know we are there and meditating, even though that's always happening, as long as we're mindful of that, then we can interact with the world more mindfully and conscientiously. It's kind of like I feel like what that guy was trying to say was the purpose of meditation. And I really appreciate that. I think that changed the way, or like refined the way I understand meditation practice. So thank you.
Except the tail latches on, and then the tail is the primary, central brain or consciousness that's trying to figure out the other four limbs, what it's doing. One of the limb goes backwards, one of the limb goes forward, depression, anxiety. The other limb, doesn't know what to do. So you have to use the Four Noble Truths to direct each limbs and tame each limbs to go back to the branch. So, but good analogy.
Well, yeah, sorry if it didn't completely make sense, but basically, like, I would say, like, the limbs are just, like, our attention span. And, like, we're always reaching out, this, that, just grabbing at the things that we're drawn to, resisting the things that we don't like. And, without being mindful, we just become hypnotized by our reality. And we lose ourselves in our thoughts and emotions, and we lose ourselves in the thought realm. But as long as we have one limb that is holding grasp onto what is really happening, which is the universe thing, it's the breath. Like, we are the universe, we are the breath. Like that, as long as we are mindful and we can, 1% of our brain is sitting from that angle, then we can engage with the world, knowing the true nature of the universe, which is like, everything's ephemeral. It's basically like, to me, like Taoism is the true nature of the universe. It's the constantly coming and going of the thing, and but oftentimes we think things are stable, and we think things we don't see the true nature of the things, and that's because we're so mesmerized and grasping with our senses. Like, I would say, like, the senses are our limbs. We might have like 5 limbs in this case, and all of our limbs is preoccupied with the senses, just grabbing onto things. But we gotta keep at least the spiritual limb in the brain that we forget about all the time. It's like almost like a vestigial limb that we gotta use to maintain grounded in this mindful understanding that we are not who we think we are.
Okay.
We are the universe. We're for chunks of Earth talking to each other, talking about what it means to be the universe. Like that is the true nature of reality.
Thank you.
And meditation is remembering that as we participate in all this constructed reality that we share.
Thank you. Thank you. The other thing I wanted to add onto that Gen Z and Alpha thing was that millennials were entering into the workforce at a very accelerated pace. And two things need to be aware. The speed of the world that we live in, conforming to that speed, conforming to that acceleration, and burnout, of which I think you guys are burned out. Okay, clearly. That's why I send the text message the way that I do, to see if you're mindful and vigilant enough to respond to the text and know what the hell is happening right now. But I think you're so burned out that you have no idea what planet you're on. Nonetheless, any text messages that come towards your way. So the Gen Zs and Alphas are now, I barely survived. I'm supposed to be dead with the amount of work and trying to get on the hamster wheel like all of us in America does. I had 3 jobs. So nowadays, when you see a monk, you're supposed to slow down. Learn the art of slowing down. And just be here with me. And I think last week I talked about how I'm now undercover with the therapist. And I'm like, I just want you to sit with me. I'm trying to process. Just sit with me. Just don't say anything into my head. I didn't say it out loud. And the therapist is just trying to get it going. And when you're around monks drinking tea and just walking around the monastery, it's so uncomfortably slow that you're like, what am I doing here wasting my life with these monks? Truly. Sometimes I feel that. I felt that when I was in Vietnam, and I'm like, I'm so used to the speed of America. I'm like, I don't understand why it's so slow here. I'm like, what is there to do? And I had to revert back to my old training, and because it's been 5 years since my training. And then, you know what I mean? Monk of 5 years, did the homework, and then accelerated life in 5 years. So I'm like, it wasn't for the abbot, the way how he poured the tea, the way how he sent it. Bridie, can you mute real quick? Because I'm getting a lot of background from your. Okay, thank you. Y'all was getting that too, right? Okay. It was the way how the abbot. This is why, in the presence of Rinpoche and myself and Vasu, watch how all 3 of us move. Just watch how each of 3 of us move, and then you're gonna be the teacher. We're the students. You're the expert observer. We become the students. When you're in the presence of a teacher, just watch them. You're now the teacher. We're the students. How do we behave? So it was when I got to the monastery and I was like, hi, I'm here. And he's he's credentialing me in such a way where he's just taking his sweet time, just sanitizing each. And it was made out of, what's that thing where you got to throw in the kiln? The material.
Are you talking ceramic?
Ceramic. He took the clippers, like long tongs, and clipped the ceramic cups and sanitized the cups in hot water and played around with it, dried it, put it back on the table, prepped the tea. The way he did it, you had no choice but to watch him. You had no choice but to be in the present moment of watching this man do it, because you've never seen anybody else do it. I've never seen anyone else do it. So in those moments, I'm just like, all right, well, just observe. Explain your intention, why you're here, and just observe the man. That was the way how he poured the tea. And that was when he finally poured both teas, that's when he looked up at my face. Research tells us our electromagnetic field, 15 feet from our heart. Our heart. So the man was utilizing that 15 feet, well, more like 3 feet in front of him, to feel my energy, to see who is this monk coming from America sitting right in front of me, dragged me out of my room at 7 o'clock at night. Now he's sitting here and I got to make tea for this guy. The hell. So, but yeah, I hope that Oh, this just came to mind when I thought about that Gen Z alpha thing. You know, y'all plant the seeds in my head, and then it just grows. Sorry, but I hope that you guys spend more time at the monastery and with monks, and to study us, to study our speed. Um, you know, I when I was with Vasu in close quarters in Arizona, you know, I like watched this man move around, and we have deadlines. He has deadlines that I had to conform to, and I'm just watching him, and I'm like, hello. It was just comical, but his voice really calmed everything down. No matter how hectic it was, right there, Arizona. It's like nothing to do in Arizona. You know how hectic it was, and just Vasu's voice just like brought everyone to peace. He Buddha'd all of us there. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention, um, because I think everyone moves at an accelerated rate with the existence of ADHD, and that's not very peaceful. That's not very peaceful, and that's one thing that I see amongst all humans: accelerated pace, pressure to meet deadlines, burnouts. Need to study burnout. Need to study stress. Got to study stress. Yes, there is a field that you have to study, and then each of the details of stress, like cortisol levels, effects of exercise, you know, slowing things down for the sake of quality of life. Okay, we have any additional questions on CBT from anyone? Okay, let's move to the life of Buddha. Miss Bree, you go ahead with life of Buddha.
Okay. So I had a question. Let me see where I can find it. Oh, here we go. Okay. So it is on page 255, and do I need to? Okay, I'll read all the way to the end. So it starts with the means. And it says, suppose a man wanting a snake saw a large snake, and when he wrongly grasped it by its coils or its tail, it turned back and bit him, on which account he came to death or deadly suffering. Why? Because of his wrong grasp of the snake. So too, some misguided men learn the Dhamma without examining the meaning of the teachings with understanding. So they require no liking for meditating upon them, learning it instead for the sake of carping and rebuttal of criticism. They fail to appreciate the purpose for which the Dhamma is learnt, and they find that the teachings being wrongly grasped by them for a large one, and when he caught it in a forked stick and rightly grasped it by the neck, then for all it might wrap its coils about his hand or arm or limbs, still he would not on that account come to death or deadly suffering. So too some clansmen learn the Dhamma and examine the meaning of the teachings with understanding, so they acquire a liking for meditating upon them, not learning it for the sake of carping and rebuttal of criticism. They appreciate the purpose for which the Dhamma is learned, and they find that those teachings, being rightly grasped by them, for long conduce to their welfare and happiness. Bhikkhus, suppose a traveler saw a great expanse of water whose near shore was dangerous and fearful, and whose further shore was safe and free from fear, but there was no ferry or bridge. That after considering this, he collected grass and branches and twigs and leaves and bound them together into a raft, supported by which, and making efforts with his hands and feet, he got safely across. Then when he had got across, he thought, this raft has been very helpful to me since by its means I got safely across. Suppose I hoist it on my head or load it on my shoulder and go where I mean to go? Now, would he be doing what should be done with a raft? No, Lord, what would he do with it? If when he got across, he thought, this raft has been very helpful to me since by its means I got safely across, perhaps I haul it up on dry land, or set it adrift on the water and go where I mean to go, then that is how he is doing what should be done with a raft. So I have shown you how the Dhamma resembles a raft in being for the purpose of crossing over, not for grasping. Because when you know the simile of the raft, then even good teaching should be abandoned by you. How much more so bad teachings? So I had a twofold question with that. So the first part of the question was in regards to talking about like grasping the snake by the tail, and being misguided, men learning the Dhamma without examining the meaning. It really made me reflect on nowadays, amidst all the chaos and mental health crises and stuff like that going on, especially with Gen Z, because we brought that up. I've noticed the word mindfulness and karma is bounced around a lot, and I find it to be used often incorrectly, because I think people that don't study the Dhamma don't understand what those terms truly mean. And the sense of, from a monk's perspective, do you find even their incorrect use of those terms and incorrect understanding still a beneficial opportunity as they have the opportunity to expand on that further, or do you find it more difficult because it kind of furthers that
Mindfulness and karma, was that what it was?
Yeah, like my question was, and it was in regards to them talking about the misguided men learning the Dhamma without examining the meaning, and I noticed in a lot of Gen Zs and a lot of authors now are kind of getting into this. They're creating like the mindfulness books and the karma books, and I find them sometimes to not be what I understand to be the correct understanding of those terms. Like you hear people say all the time, I hope karma comes and gets them when they do something wrong to them personally. And from a monk's perspective, do you find that to be similar to this analogy where it's only harming them, or does it kind of open a door of an opportunity for them to expand on their knowledge if they, wanted to? Or is it more of like, that's more of a hindrance to what you guys are trying to do?
I think the authors are raising awareness of what mindfulness is. I think the authors are raising awareness as to what karma is. These are new vocabularies for generations to come into, new generations to come into. It is the intelligence of that individual in the generation and the curiosity of that individual and the effects of their rebirth, their formal lives being exposed to the Dhamma in their former lives leads one to have already imprinted memory of the Dhamma enough to propel them to be curious in the Dhamma today because they had previous Dhamma exposure and absorption before. Like me, like I was born and raised Catholic. I'm not supposed to be a monk. And why was I into this blah blah blah. So I told people many times that I think my last life I was a monk and I was really drawn to that piece. And that's why I dove into this. I'm not supposed to be diving into this. I'm supposed to be diving into the Catholic world. If you look at the way how I talk about the Catholic world, it was just quite extensive, quite in details. And it's like, why did I veer off to this, right? So again, for us monks to explain to the people, we tell them, based upon the intelligence of the student, the curiosity of the student, the suffering of the student, it's like if they keep on getting bad karma in their life and if they wonder why, then they would dive deep. They would go to the University of Virginia and dive deep into study of rebirths and karmic effects. Right? And then there's people out there where, we have reason to believe that, wow, like 15-year-old Saint Xavier from North Florida, who I made saint by virtue of wisdom. How the hell does a 15-year-old kid who's not even Asian, who is Hispanic descent, been bestowed one of the highest sainthood one could? Oh, dang it. I had a podcast tonight at 10. from Cali, and they just called. Dang it. So I knew something was pending on my mind. All right. And I have reason to believe that the kid, in his previous life was probably a monk to to answer some of the questions where I'm like, that's a master's degree level question. You're still in high school. So, anyways, I hope that answers that it just, that's what we know. We know a different one when one comes towards our way. We know how to assess them based upon their curiosity level of suffering and how they want to know about the Dhamma. Obviously, we don't see a bunch of monks running around knocking on them based upon their curiosity level of suffering and how they want to know about the Dhamma. Obviously, we don't see a bunch of monks running around knocking on doors trying to find them. They'll find us.
That definitely makes a lot more sense. It kind of gives a more compassionate side to it, because I have a lot of friends that are very much into the New Age spirituality movements and all that kind of stuff. And I hear them all the time say, "Oh, I hope karma comes and gets them," when they cut them off and stuff like that. And it, like, sometimes it irks me, because I'm like, but that's not, like, that's a very shallow understanding of karma. But now I could be like, maybe they're intrigued. Maybe they'll be more invested to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, and
Maybe I'll slide some books to them.
you don't have to. And then for the ones that the one that sticks around long enough, you'll gather enough evidence about them, and then you're like, yeah, well, this is what's happening with so whether they take it or not. So you know what I mean. Again, along this way, you're gonna meet a lot of people. I hope you guys are within close quarters with me. You get to observe a lot of humans that come up to me and observe their life and just study their life, study the timeline with their life, and then study what karma is doing to them right now. Study the ones that do give and see the karmic effects of those, and study the ones that don't give, the one that is selfish, self-centered, and look at how karma treats them. And you're going to have a very clear understanding of the ones that do give and the one that don't give. And you just look at their karmic effects and you're like, this is night and day. Well, I cannot believe karma is this real. Karma is this real. And so is many, so is the many CEOs that I have met, and they tell me about their life suffering, and I ask them, like, it seems like you've made a lot of money in your young days, beginning of your life, middle of your life, and now towards the end of your life. How much have you given to charity? I haven't given them. And then the next thing I wanted to tell them, which I don't, by the way, is, and you never made the connections between karma and your lack of giving and how you made all this money and all in the name of what? For you. For you. And just for you. Right? So again, I'm telling you, one of these days, become an ordained nun and then just observe. And just exactly what I'm telling you now. I'm glad I'm recording this so y'all can go back to it. And it's like, how did he train us? How did he train us to observe karma in other people and to assess and evaluate in other people? Follow his lead. Words of Jidao. Follow his lead and let it unfold right in front of you, and you're gonna be like, wow. Right? So yeah. Anyways, yes, Miss B2, you had your hands up. You're muted, by the way. Yeah.
I think you kind of already answered my question. A lot of people, I hear this a lot, and instant karma. Like if they do something and then something bad happens to them right afterwards, and so there's instant karma. Is there such thing as that?
Yeah, I actually explained this last week, right? About stealing a piece of candy and your conscience. So, it's a lot of effects. Yeah. A lot of karmic effects. The guilty conscience. And then if you've stolen from anyone before, just wait till things in your room start going missing and you're like, how did it go missing? Yes, go ahead, Miss K.
But then with the instant karma, for people using it in the wrong way, I've realized lately, I've heard people say, and I kind of agree, I have my thought process on this, like, people you think karma per se shouldn't affect. But then you got those out there who've done so many wrong things, who've gotten away with so many bad things for their own selfish needs. You're wondering, well, where in the world is karma for them? But everybody else, you step on an ant wrong, and next thing you know, somebody stubs your toe, and you're like, well, why in the heck? Why am I getting hurt? Like little things like that, and it's like, okay, but the people that are doing the most damage, karma is taking its very sweet time.
And I gave my explanation, and I gave my previous explanation. Who can remember my previous explanation that I gave over and over again? This is how I test your hippocampus, how well your memory is, and this should come instantaneously. Words come out of my mouth is gold and platinum. I don't understand why y'all didn't store the gold and platinum in your brains.
Wasn't the isn't it all based on, like what's the word? Like accumulated merits, and in their previous lives they might have been like these really, really great people, so they built up a lot of good karma that's still like, they're obviously not living the skillful life this time, but they still have all that good karma from their past that's kind of shielding them currently. But that, as Venerable said before, that will run out at some point. Maybe in this lifetime, maybe in the next.
Next time.
You're on mute. You're on mute, Jay. Jay-Z.
Okay. It really just comes down to just responsibility. You got to be accountable for what you've done. You got to look back at your situations and really, really, with self-honesty, say to yourself, could I have been the best person? Could I have been with honesty? Was I did something? You just put it through the precepts is what I usually do. The filter of the 5 precepts, and you can't fail. There's like not fail. Like if you put every single one of your actions and even others through the 5 precepts, so in other words, now you have like this filter that you're looking through, and it's the 5 precepts, you won't fail. You will find dishonesty. You will find, ill will. You will find, it will root those things out immediately. So with that being said, as far as like you standing and judging, even though observing, you have a point of view, you have a certain bias. Well, that bias is not really yours. You inherited that through your previous biases. That's how you got here to this life. That by buying through how we're talking right now. So now you're looking back and you're saying, oh, where's their karma? Well, what's your intention in making that sort of statement to yourself? Are you trying to say, are you putting yourself in a position to know what exactly it is, karma, to say that the dishing out of their karma is not thorough enough? It's like, so you have to, you must never take that position, because now you're not even the observer, you're the judger that's deciding how karma is going to operate. And that's a position you don't want to be in, because it's like, now you really have wrong view. Like you're further away than you were closer, let's say. With that being said, it comes down to accountability. Everything that we've done, all this, that's why I mentioned in the mass text message, I also said something, which was, watch the one on Angulimala, who was a mass murderer. The reason why he's such a hero for me is very simply, if this guy can do it in one lifetime, so that means I do not want to go through getting teeth pulled. I don't want to go through heartaches, being cheated on, cheating, being robbed, going to prison, experiencing knee pain, headaches, getting cut off in the road, not being served good coffee. I don't want to go through all these things again. I really don't. And this is the prison of being in this body. It is not like we're here because of spirituality. So with that, what I'm trying to say is that when it comes to karma, it's just simply about cause and effect. It's you are there, or wherever you are, experiencing what you're experiencing due to your previous action, point blank. There's no way around it. So you have only but yourself to blame, like I do for me. A lot of people say I'm too hard on myself, but I have to be because I come from the land of slackers. So coming from the land of slackers, I have to be hard on myself because if I even so much as allow a millimeter of slackness, that's enough room for me to continue. So it's about accountability and saying, okay, when you look at other people's karma, it's also
Okay, Jorge, I gotta cut you off because we're running out of time. We're running out of time. Okay, I don't think we're gonna have enough. We went through quite some time, so hopefully this month and upcoming months we can just fly through this book, Life of Buddha. I have a novice that I need to discipline, and mind you all, senior teachers, how we exercise our punishment is we make them sit here and breathe. So the novice has been sitting here the entire time, back straight, shoulders relaxed, breathing, waiting to be disciplined to hear the sound of the Buddha. So I apologize, you all, that I cannot get through all of your questions tonight, but you'll give a lot of insights into your memory, into my teachings. And I still haven't got any letters from all of you assessing the teacher, and I believe my last instructions were, what were some key teachings last year that stood out to you? And I haven't received anybody's letters. Did I not? I remember giving those instructions. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Because the letter gives me insight into how much you paid attention when I'm speaking and giving my explanations, such as karma. Your job is to record it down. Your job is to reflect on it and bring it out of your library and throw it back out at me. Your job is to verify that what I said to you is true, and your job is to call me out. Dun 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 dun. Ooh, everyone's getting disciplined tonight. Ooh. So you all can see, notwithstanding Gen Alpha and Gen Z, look at how all of us are taking notes and not taking notes and remembering things and not remembering things. That's why I said you all are burnt out. Right. This is why this Rinpoche thing is going to be good for everybody. For the sake of your mind, because you're going to lose it. You see, you're already losing it. You've already lost, probably 30% of your mind. Right? We found Ji Dao. He gave instructions. We failed to follow instructions. And now it's like, what is happening to me, to us? What is happening? Why? Oh, yeah, I remember now. Everyone's having that. Oh, yeah, I remember now. Right. You see how mindful I have to be? With all these things, all the words that come out of my mouth, I got to still remember which one I said to you and when I said it to you and why I said it to you and how I said it to you. Oh, man. So anyways, the Psychology Today articles will help reel yourself in with enough medical and scientific evidence. You all will realize that if you don't take this seriously, you will in fact lose your mind by age 45. And social media is shrinking your brain, like the algorithms. So, oh, what a great way to end on that note. So anyways, you all say bye to each other and thank you all for joining.
Have a good night, everyone.
Take
Good night,
care.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Hope you have a good week.
You too.